Good evening to everyone. A warm welcome to all those who are here, and a very warm welcome to those watching from all over the world, actually. And a big thank you to Naoku for giving us that beautiful ambience of calm and quiet. And we'll be hearing Naoku play throughout the evening. And actually, Naoku-san is a sound therapist, a Reiki teacher, and she holds individual counseling sessions and also sound healing and sound bathing parties, which sound very interesting. Thank you again so much. Before we go further, just a few house rules, which are always necessary. We're not expecting a fire, so if the alarm goes, please follow the ushers. Well, in the very unlikely event, then the ushers will guide you. We'd appreciate if you could put your mobile phones on flight mode or do not disturb, so that it doesn't disturb. We prefer that you don't film or take photographs, again to keep the atmosphere of the evening, and there will be official filming and photography taking place. And then actually the event will be available straight away, or pretty much straight away, on the Brahma Kumari's UK YouTube channel if you want to watch again or you want to invite anyone else to watch the event who may not have seen it. So a very warm welcome to this evening. My name is Maureen, and I know many of you know me, I know many of you, and I'm honoured to be welcoming you to this very special evening, an evening of an unlimited kind of love. And this house, Global Cooperation House, is the international coordinating office for the Brahma Kumari's work outside of India, and that now spans 120 countries. And Raj Yoga, our essential teaching, has been our offering to the world since the beginnings of the Brahma Kumaris in 1930s in India. And we do understand, as most of you do, or all of you do, that spirituality is relevant to every area of life. And today we're going to delve into the topic, an unlimited kind of love. Is yoga of the mind the key? And our conversationalists will consider the transformative power of love and delve deep into the consciousness of love and how we can truly be love and practice love. And this evening is dedicated to the International Day of Yoga. This actually falls on the 21st of June, but we're celebrating today, and it was declared by the United Nations in December 2014, and it was proposed by the government of India to recognize and promote the benefits of yoga for body and mind. And I'm pleased to acknowledge that, yes, we have with us representatives from the Indian High Commission, Mr. Kapil Dev and his wife. Mr. Kapil Dev is the Minister for Diplomacy and Consular Services, and Mr. Ashok Kota, who is an ex-visa officer at the Indian High Commission. Thank you so much for being with us. So I'd like us to begin with a little reflective question to warm us up to the topic. So I'd like you to reflect for a moment. What attracted you to this particular topic or theme for the evening, to this event? And what does an unlimited kind of love mean to you? Just have a moment to reflect on that. So what attracted you to this, and what does it mean for you, an unlimited kind of love? Okay, not giving you too long to reflect, but I'd like you to just turn to your neighbour, whoever you're sitting next to, and just exchange for 2 minutes each, one to the other, then swap over on these questions. You can be in a 3 if a 2 isn't so easy. Remember to give your other partner a chance to speak. Okay, I hope that's got your thoughts moving in this direction. Of course, we could carry on talking, but we have many wonderful things to listen to. And so I'd now like to introduce our 2 conversationalists, and I'd ask them to come up on the stage from this side when I'm introducing them. And I have to say they're both very dear friends of mine, so I'm very happy to invite them on the stage. So first, Sister Jayanti, she's the additional administrative head of the Brahma Kumaris, and this is a position, if you like, that she received, I think, just over a year ago, and she really carries that responsibility with a lot of grace. And she is a practitioner and teacher of Raj Yoga for over 50 years. Sister Jayanti is also the NGO representative for the Brahma Kumaris to the UN in Geneva, and she leads the Brahma Kumaris delegations to the climate change conferences each year. And she travels the globe, so a few weeks ago in India, in Europe, next week to Australia, and so on. But she carries with her a message of love and of hope. And I have known Sister Jayanti, of course, for over 40 years, and I can tell you that she carries a huge spiritual wisdom that the world very badly needs now. So Sister Jayanti, please come. Okay. And I'd like to introduce Professor David Cadman. And David's work is centered upon upon teachings of love and compassion, wholeness and connectivity. He's currently writing a text entitled In Order to Love that explores what it is that love requires from us in order to become manifest. This is the third in a series of books on love, which includes Love and the Divine Feminine, published in 2020, and The Recovery of Love, published in 2022. David and I have worked very closely together on several projects, and I can say that David will not only talk about love, but love and compassion are deeply embedded in his being and are expressed very much in the care that he shows to others. So David, please come to the stage. Thank you. And I know as you listen now for the next 25 minutes or so, some questions may come up in your heart and mind, but keep them with you, because afterwards there'll be a brief opportunity to ask a few questions from the audience. And so, Sister Jayanti and David, we look forward to hearing to eavesdropping on your special conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Maureen, and Om Shanti, and a warm welcome to all of you. And David, is this volume okay for you? We come from different corners of the planet, but I think we come together when we share our values, and also I think that we find a way to see how each one looks at the same subject. And for me, just very briefly, the whole subject of love comes alive when there's the understanding of the self as a spiritual being and the connection with the divine, yoga. And today we are honoring the International Day of Yoga. And when there is that connection with the divine, then there's a transformation of the human heart from a selfish space or a space just concerned with duty and responsibility to a bigger space that's very inclusive for all. And so it's a transition, a transformational experience. And I'll be interested to hear your thoughts on the topic.
Thank you, Sister. I began working on this about 12 years ago. And it came to me that I just had this notion, I suppose, that love is of the essence. And I wanted to explore texts and teachings, coming to here to share matters with the Brahma Kumaris. I began to explore, first of all, why love is not present in our Western culture. And that was my first book, Love and the Divine Feminine, which suggested that just as women had been pushed aside in Western culture because they were associated with nurture and care, so love was pushed aside too, in favor of a rather damaging doctrine of sin and redemption. And then I went on from that to say, well, how might we recover love? And I explored what other people were saying about that. And then finally, in this text which I'm working on now, turning the matter on its head, what is it that love requires of us if love is to become manifest? And all of that really was to support this notion that had arisen, that love is of the essence. In fact, some say love is the energetic force of the universe, that love was there at the beginning, that there wasn't a big bang at all. What there was a small and very particular out-breath of love, which carried with it all the particulars that would be necessary to bring us from 14 billion years ago to where we are now and then onwards. And that, of course, is almost impossible to understand, isn't it? But what it's increasingly showing me in my work, that the presence of love is the presence of life. And without it, we are certainly in grave danger.
There's a very lovely expression, and it goes something like, love is God and God is love.
Yes.
And there's another accompanying expression, truth is God, God is truth.
Yes.
So that being who is the divine is always associated with these two qualities, that of love and that of truth.
Yes.
And so when you say that love is the essence and is the energetic force that motivates the universe, absolutely true, that it's God's power of love that gives us new life. And when you spoke about the out-breath and the pouring out of love, to me it reminds me of my own spiritual rebirth, because you have your physical birth,
yes.
But then there comes a specific moment for many. Maybe it's a gradual development, but for me it was a very specific, sudden moment in which there was an awakening. And at that point, it was the power of love that created that awakening.
Yes.
And so definitely love is that which moves you, me, and it moved me from being just part of the world, the mundane world, and
yes.
Just life
yes.
as usual, to a different pursuit, the pursuit of spiritual understanding and spiritual progress.
Yes.
So yes, love is that energetic force that brings about change.
Yes. And it's a struggle, isn't it?
It can
is
be.
for me.
It can be, but more than a struggle, the struggle comes when the negativity that's been there in the soul for a long time
yes.
pops up.
Yes.
But if you rise above that, then the journey of love is a very fast one.
Yes, yes. When you mentioned this, God is love, in the Epistle of John, as you know, is these words that are in the Bible, that God is love. Interestingly, those words are not, God is amongst other things love, but God is love. And in that case, because I sometimes struggle with the notion of God, and what would that be possibly like, and I notice all the things that have gone wrong in that notion. So I prefer, and Quakers are allowed to do almost anything they like, I have to tell you, I prefer to think of the divine presence as love. And it makes a tremendous difference when you look at the teachings in the Bible. If you insert love in the place of God, you'd be surprised how much more comfortable you feel. But I say it's a struggle because I'm not a scholar. I come at this as an elderly man asking questions and struggling for answers. So I do my best to find the answers, but I'm always aware of not knowing. That not knowing, I think, actually is really, really important. Otherwise, it becomes doctrinaire, I think.
Right.
And I've been doing some very interesting work recently on this whole question of love in this text, In Order to Love. I was blessed by having a funded research assistant, which I don't normally have, and I wanted to explore the arising of love in between a mother and a child. And this young woman in America had studied neurology. This was part of her university learning. She was just coming to the end of her university learning. And the most amazing thing is that when you look at the neurology that is going on in utero and in neonate with the mother and the child, it's specifically designed to bring about a loving relationship. So mothers don't love their children by kind of accident or social pressure, they are intended to love their children. And that helps me think that maybe there is something in this notion that love is of the essence. And of course I always feel it when I come here, because I feel loved here.
It is a reality that the bonding of mother and child, but also then further on the bonding of the child with both parents,
yes,
and then siblings,
yes,
and so on.
Yes.
It's the original state of love, and you would say it's the essence is love.
Yes.
But I would also say that the original state of the soul, the natural state of the soul, is that of love.
Yes.
Which is why when you walk into a gathering when there is love, the hours will pass by and you won't feel it. You won't be looking at the clock and counting the minutes. And if you walk into an atmosphere, they say that fear is the opposite of love. So if you walk into an atmosphere where there's fear,
yes,
and tension, or even when there's dislike or anything negative, you don't want to stay there. You want to get out of it as soon as possible. And so love is natural.
Yes.
Love is the power that holds us together. And it's the love that also connects us with that supreme divine energy.
Yes.
And whether we call that God,
yes,
or by any other name,
yes,
but that divine force.
yes.
And so yes, love is the ability to be able to come together and bind together. There's a lovely expression that we have that when we come together, it's like a rosary, and the thread that's holding the individual souls together in one garland or one rosary is the thread of love. And so yes, love connects us with the one, but also love connects us with all of us, with each other.
I was thinking about that as our friend was playing that wonderful music at the beginning. And of course, as she struck the bowl or caressed the rim of the bowl, that you felt the vibration, didn't you? You could not only hear it, but you could actually feel the vibration. And of course, we know that we also give out a vibration. Our energetic force is a vibration. And it also now seems, from the science, that energy can travel great distances. It's not fixed by locality. And I don't know how that happens, of course, but apparently it happens. And that's rather wonderful, because I think in times that we live in now, which in many ways are desperate and fearful, it gives one the glimmering of a hope that this arising of love, which we are beginning to experience more and more in work and so on, that maybe it is its time.
I believe so. You know, they say that the darkest hour is before the dawn.
Yes.
And so for a while we've been through a very, very dark period. And in India they would call it Kali Yuga. We've been through that period where there's a lot of negativity, a lot of darkness.
Yes.
And you described a state of culture, not just the Western culture,
yes,
but generally the world,
yes,
where love has been lost. And so coming to the end of that, and we transition into a new era,
yes,
an era of truth, of love.
Yes.
And I believe this is now that transition period, which gives me a lot of excitement.
Yes.
Makes not just hope, but that understanding that we're actually moving to a new era.
Yes.
And each one of us is instrumental and responsible to be part of that transition.
Yes.
And so I think people who come here and those who are watching and listening online are also perhaps part of that awakening in which there is this shift happening, so that within the darkness you're beginning to see light, and the light is the light of love, and the light is that which is bringing us together
Yes.
from different corners. So yes, I think that this is that period when individually there is that love awakening as we have a spiritual awakening, but also those of us who are interested in these things and want to develop further in this direction, I think we are also being drawn together
Yes.
and come together
Yes.
so that the energy multiplies. And I believe very strongly that even though it's still a minority group compared to the billions in the world, the people who are on this path are not so many, but I think that we're coming to a point of critical mass where there will be a shift that's totally transformational. And so even if the rest of the world at the moment is still asleep, it's okay. But the energy that's being generated and the energy from above, the divine energy, it's going to bring that shift to a new era in which it is love that will be the force that carries everything through.
Do you find that in your travels, that the same experience in other countries and so on?
I'm very fortunate that early days when I would travel, I would be meeting strangers. But nowadays when I travel, there's usually a group that's connected with the center. And so there are people like here, people who are very interested in these matters. It was very interesting to be in Iceland last week. And you've been part of that program, Spirit of Humanity, over the last few years. And Maureen also is an integral part of that. But we had the Prime Minister of Iceland actually give us a recording of an interview she had with the woman who's now the director of the forum, Johanna. And in the interview, she's talking about spirituality, she's talking about values. And so, yes, I find always groups of people who are interested in these matters, but it was beautiful to see a woman who's the leader of her country and in office at the moment, but she's also very much in that direction of wanting, recognizing that a leader needs time for themselves to be able to go within and understand more deeply what it is that is needed in the world and how it is they can respond in a responsible way to what the world needs. So if it's leading up to that point of leadership, then that gives me a lot of hope. And also, perhaps you're aware, I'm not sure that you are, but the current president of India is a very interesting woman. And she's from a tribal background, so that in itself is something. And a woman from a tribal area coming and becoming president. And she also has been following Raj Yoga, Brahma Kumari's teachings for, I think, about 15 years or so. So again, a woman of deep values that she practices in her life.
In a way that's, I suppose, not surprising, because India has been so wonderful now and in the past in nurturing spiritual activity. I'm having at the moment a rather bizarre relationship with China, for reasons which would take too long to explain. I helped create what we've called a time of silence every Sunday for a month, and then a break, and then the next month every Sunday. And of course it's on Zoom. We're not sitting as we are here, feeling the energy of people. But we have 80 people at a time sitting in silence for a short period, something like 20 minutes to half an hour. And the responses from the mostly young people who are taking part of this are incredibly moving. In this silence, what we say in the time of silence, it's a simple exercise in which you have no expectations as you sit in silence, but you sit and open your heart to the arising of love. And it's as if they've never heard this before. And they're very moved by this as a possibility. So this matter of distance, you know, of course, I'm sitting there in my study in Suffolk, and they're however many miles away it is, it's a long way. And we feel the feeling of connection, even through the Zoom, like people are listening to this, aren't they, this evening? Some of that feeling that arises of love, particularly in moments of intentional silence, it's extraordinary how strong that energy is. It is as if we were as if we were designed for it, which I believe we were. And we've been taken off track. I don't know whether it's deliberate, but it does seem that power is associated with fear. And it's not surprising that, you know, when we're asked to sort of say, well, how do you justify what you're talking about? I say, well, look, hang on a moment. I'm not the one who's been organising the world for the last 50 or 60 years. It's a doctrine of separation and fear that they should be explaining to me why it is they behave in that way, not those of us who are trying in a small way to explore the possibilities of love. Why are we having to explain that? So I entirely agree with your idea that this emergence is timely. I'm so old I probably won't see it, but people in this audience may see it.
Well, the soul is eternal, so I think whether in this body or
yes,
part of the journey,
hopefully,
you'll be there to see it, I'm sure.
Yes.
But yes, part of Kali Yuga is the whole situation where there's commercialism, materialism,
yes,
and power is associated both with control and fear, rather than the Shakti. Love is an inner power. It's also a power, but it's a tremendous inner power, a Shakti.
Yes.
And in India we talk about the Shakti that comes from Shiva, the Supreme.
Yes.
And so when we connect with the Divine, that Shakti is able to come in us, and it's firstly a power over the self, in which I take charge of what's going on in my mind, in my thoughts, in my feelings, rather than allow external circumstances to push me hither and thither and lose track of what's going on, which is what happens generally.
Yes.
But as I draw that power of love teaches me how to discipline my thoughts and my feelings so that I start moving in the right direction, so that the power of pure love can awaken through that. And of course then there's a transformation that goes inside through the change from anything that's negative to that which is pure and elevated, not even just positive. You knew Dadi Janki very well, and she would often say, don't talk to me about positive thinking, that's not enough. It has to be higher than just positive thinking. It has to be pure thinking, it has to be elevated thinking. And so when there is that transformation from within, in which we begin to have those pure, elevated thoughts and feelings through that divine connection of yoga, then yes, we become also a reflection of that same love.
That's the link, isn't it, with the mind, as you have it in the title, because the mind is consciousness. And the literature which is being written now is suggesting that there is a single consciousness, a single universal consciousness of which we are all a part. And that in its purest form, pure consciousness is love. So one might say there's a universal love that is present, even though we may not be able if our minds are not in the right direction or tuned up a bit, that we may not be able to feel it and manifest it in our own lives. And that, of course, comes to that other hard problem of the integration of understanding and activity, which I struggle with all the time. So that it's all very well to have some kind of knowledge of these things, but to be practicing it intentionally in everything that we say and do, at the bus stop and going into the supermarket. Now, when I come here, I feel that action. You know, when we had this lovely supper this evening, and the people came and very gently and quietly offered the food, I could absolutely feel the practice of loving intention. It's powerful. And actually, I think it's much more widespread than we suppose. It may be the people in power don't know anything about it, but we all know about it in our everyday lives, when the loving actions of people, the care of people who are unwell, making a particular time for them and so on. So it's sort of, the difficulty is there, we can see it's there, but somehow we can't, at the moment, bring it to that higher level in which it will govern all that we will do. I think where time will come, don't you? That time will come.
There's a season, and there's a time for the season.
Yes.
And so the time for that season of love, I think, is just ahead of us. Two things I want to mention. One is this thing that you mentioned about understanding and yet not being able to put that understanding through into practice. And yes, that's a reality in today's world, but that's also where we lack self-love. Because my own consciousness and my conscience is totally aware of what I know is right, and yet my behavior or my actions are not aligned to that.
Yes.
And so why I lack self-esteem or self-respect or love for the self is because of this discrepancy.
Yes.
And the more I take power, Shakti, from the divine, so that I'm able to align these together, so it's not that my behavior is different, but it's aligned to those highest principles, then my respect for myself and my awareness of self-esteem and love for the self emerges. I usually remember that Jayanti many times, and again I'm remembering how when she spoke about loving the self, she said it's nothing to do with ego, but it's being able to know deeply myself as being a child of the divine. And also she said, when I look into the mirror first thing in the morning, I remind myself I'm a child of the divine, and I have to love myself. And so first thing when you look into the mirror tomorrow morning, or even tonight before you go to sleep, remind yourself of this. And that will give you the power to be able to put through into real life the things that you know and understand. That was one thing you triggered. Another thing that you said reminded me of the fact that in India we have this expression, Vasudeva Kutumbakam, and it's a slogan that the Prime Minister has taken up in the context of the G20, because translated that means one world family. And it's a concept that's been there for millennia in India. I know that all those who have that Indian connection will be aware of it. And so that idea that we are one family, that it's not that one country or one race or one culture is different. The diversity is beautiful, and that is going to stay, and we don't want to eliminate it. But at the heart of everything, we are one family. And so when we understand that, then I think it's much easier to let down those barriers that divide us, dissolve, so that then we can truly connect with each other as a family and have that humanness that connects us together with love.
Absolutely. Daddy Jayanti said some wonderful things, didn't she? I will never forget. I came here for a visit and to meet Daddy Jayanti, and there she was sitting in the chair, this tiny little figure sitting in the chair, and this was about, I suppose, 10 years ago, I suppose. And I took my shoes off. I came in and greeted her, and I said, Daddy, I wonder if you can help me. I said, I feel, as I get older, I feel I'm becoming more irritable. What should I do? There was a long pause, and she said, just stop it. And I thought, well, that's it. That'll do. No, I'm afraid I haven't managed to do that, but still. But this idea of the family links to this idea of a single consciousness. So maybe we should think of ourselves as children of the universe, and then we're certainly all of one family. And so there's another little bit to this. I don't know if this is digression, but I also have difficulty with the extent to which our views of how we should be with each other have become all about rights. My right to do this, and this is my right, you know, and then all the things that follow from that. Whereas if we simply said our responsibility is to love one another, isn't that much more powerful than trying to codify a whole set of things that are going to tell us what we should do?
Absolutely. And it's true that when there is that awareness of love and the responsibility of love to the divine and to each other, then the world can be a very different place. And I think we're moving in that direction. There was something else you said earlier on, and that was the whole subject about the vibration of love.
Yes.
And I believe that if I sit in silence and I'm experiencing that connection, that divine love, then it's not just exclusively for me, even though I'm the one who's making that connection, but I think it's a reality to know that those vibrations of love are being spread out into the world. And on the one side there's the sorrow, the suffering, the anger and all of that. But on the other side, if there's collective energy that's sending out those vibrations of love, then that is also having more and more of an impact. And we have a practice that we call Mansa Seva, service through the mind. And especially through the period of COVID, we had so many people say to us, can you pray for this one? Can you support this one? Different, whether it was people who were coming to us every day earlier on before COVID and now they couldn't, but they were also telling us about their relatives, their nearest and dearest ones. And we would do that. We would send out those vibrations of love to whoever was the person in need. And very often we'd get the feedback from them in the way that it supported the family, it supported the individual. And so yes, if our responsibility to each other is to be able to share that love, then I think we're moving towards the golden age, a world of truth.
Yes. Shall we try that silence for a minute?
Why not?
One of the things which is been coming to me recently, I'm not the sort of person who, by and large, who has visions or messages. Not at all. But some years ago, sitting in my study in Suffolk, literally looking at my screen lost for words, literally lost for words, love spoke to me. And one of the things that love said, there was quite a lot and I wrote it down, but one of the things that love said was, suppose that what I say is true. And I think about that a lot. If we were to behave as if love was true, not to have to prove it, or just as if love were true, how much that might change everything that we do. Suppose that what I say is true.
I was curious, as a Quaker, you were trained in silence.
Yes.
And you still practice meditation in silence.
Yes.
Is there a difference between your Quaker silence and the silence you experience today?
Well, the thing about today's Quakers, wouldn't have pleased George Fox, who was the founder of Quakers, is that there's an enormous variety of beliefs and values that appear. If you go to a Quaker meeting, you're sitting in silence, you don't actually know how other people are feeling. But what you do experience in that gathered silence is extraordinary. It's indescribable. And I don't really make a very good Quaker because I'm extremely agitated most of the time and can't, I get distracted by things. But you're meant to be very calm and practice. So we've had during COVID, and then we stuck with it afterwards. We have a Quaker meeting on Zoom, and that also is very powerful. But what I suppose I was taught it as a boy, was okay. We go to meeting on a Sunday, and we have our hourly silence. My father was a very devout man, so we all did it, and I went to a Quaker school where we all did it. But in a way, that experience of silence so permeates you that even if you're as agitated as I am, you can, in those little glimpses and pauses, the commas and the full stops and the semicolons of life, you can just momentarily fall back into silence. And I think that silence and love are very closely connected. In fact, I think silence is the source of love. I think that's the discovery of love, is in silent reflection. I'm pretty sure that that's how it works.
I agree. It's in silence that I can experience the inner being that I am, because when I'm rushing around, it's more difficult. It's still possible,
yes,
but really, as a journey, beginning with silence is a very powerful way to get in touch with the self. And then as a result of that, then to feel the presence of the divine. And then through that connection and silence, then to feel that love reaching the soul.
Yes.
So I think that if there isn't time for silence, that we, as you said, intentional silence,
yes,
there was a lovely expression you used. So when there is that intentional silence in which I am on that journey, then it's a very powerful experience of love.
yes,
And it is transformational.
yes. Yes, I'm as I get older and older and older, of course, I'm more reflective than I was 20 years ago. God, I hardly dare think about it. But I am more reflective, and I think my wife, Bridget, works with the dying, and she tells me about what happens in the last part of life, how very often, in different ways and at different moments, people come to that deep silence and loving point of surrender, I suppose one would say it. So one of the things about being a Quaker is that you feel quite comfortable in silence. So if someone says, well, let's have some silence, you don't think, oh gosh, what am I going to do? But Quaker business meetings start with silence. They start with silence. Nobody interjects when someone else is speaking. And there's always a pause of silence after someone has spoken. And there's never a vote taken. The person who convenes the meeting has to sense what it is that the meeting seems to have come to as an answer. The feeling of the meeting, it's called. Now, you would think that that would make meetings absolutely impossible. But actually, funnily enough, because everybody thinks they're going to have a chance to say their bit and they're listened to, it is very, very rarely like that. It works quite well. So I think, again, that power of silence, which we're now linking with consciousness and with the mind, is a real, it's a reality. It's not just something we talk about, it's a reality. And one of the things that I'm beginning to see is that what love requires is that we learn to love. Almost, well, certainly above anything else that we try and do, with intention, we should learn to love. Lifelong task, but that is what we should do. And I think that if we did that, and if love became part of our governance, you think how wonderful that would be. You know, that's the spirit of humanity that you and I have both been involved of. But the idea is that by bringing leaders from various parts of the world together who are responsible for governance of public affairs, that they see that love could be part of that governance. Maybe a significant part, maybe a totality of it, and it would change the world.
I think we're in that direction, and I see how love transforms individuals, but the power of love also makes obstacles dissolve. So I'm facing a situation in which I'm thinking this is difficult, but if I can experience divine love and go transcend that situation, I look at it from a very different perspective. And so it's no more an obstacle. I'm able to find a solution to whatever that is. And so love is able to help us overcome whatever obstacles we may be facing in our lives. And that again is very much a reality. And I think that as leaders begin to understand the power of love and start using the power of love, things change. I'll give you an example. We have volunteers. We don't have any paid staff at all. And what is it that allows the volunteers to do all the things that happen here, for example? Or imagine Mount Abu and our big campus at the bottom of the mountain where 25,000 people are taken care of on a daily basis when we have our meetings. It's the power of love. It's love that you don't count the hours, you don't look at the clock and say, you know, my time is up, I'm going, goodbye. But you just do whatever is the need. And they do it just simply out of love. But it's because they're receiving so much from the divine that the heart is full and they're able to give. If my heart is empty, then what can I give to others? But when I fill myself with that love, then yes, I'm able to share and give very naturally and freely. So taking care of 5 people is sometimes a struggle, but taking care of 25,000 people, 1,000, not 100. And it happens just simply through the power of love.
Yes. A friend of mine who I think you know, called Richard Dunn, has been, for the last 15, possibly longer years, he was a headmaster of a primary school in southwest London. And he read the then Prince of Wales, now His Majesty's book on harmony. And he was so struck by the teachings of harmony, which is right relationship, and harmony is an expression of love, that he thought that he would try and bring this into his school. Not to replace the curriculum, because that wouldn't have been possible, but to make the curriculum richer, more meaningful for the children. And he had extraordinary results in terms of what they did was that they, instead of having lessons where children sat in rows and were told things, they engaged in an inquiry together with the teacher. Learning by inquiry is what it was called, and very much related to nature and to all those qualities of relationship and coordination and cooperation. And these children, it completely transformed their ability to concentrate, their enjoyment of being at school, all the tests that they had to do for whatever it is that organisation is called, Ofsted or something. Yes, they did all those and came out remarkably well. So here is an example of a practical person taking a key part of love, harmony, and actually beginning to teach it to young children. And they got it very quickly. It was almost as if, just as love is innate in us, it is almost as if they understood harmony without being told it. So when they were given the opportunity to show it, of course it came out. So I think that maybe the reason that we haven't brought love into practice is because people just think it wouldn't do it. You know, oh, well, I can't get real, people say. And then I say to them, well, which reality are you talking about? Are you talking about the one with climate degradation and massive division between the rich and the poor and fires in Canada and all of these things? What is the reality that we're talking about? So again, I think that they are the ones who have to explain it, and we are the ones who can say, look, there is another way of doing this. We struggle at it, we don't always get it right, but there is another way of doing it. How about, suppose that we did it this way? And I think there's, if we had that intention, clear intention, and to insist upon using the words like love. Remember at Spirit of Humanity, when we first used the word love, people said, oh, you can't use the word love, no one will come. Well, we did, and 200 people turned up. Because there's a deep yearning amongst us all. And it's for that experience of universal love at the deepest level, I think.
Agree. And I think Maureen is trying to give us a signal now.
I was just getting into this.
I know. Will you be here another hour? What do you think? I was so reluctant to come on the stage, and it's been so rich. And I guess I would say, what if all you say is true? But I'd like to invite Naoko back onto the stage to play for us, but to really give us a chance to reflect deeply on all the wonderful things that have been shared by both of you. So let us listen and let us reflect deeply. Thank you. So, following our reflection, we just have about 10 minutes or so for if anyone would like to ask anything, share anything. I'd ask you to keep your comments or questions brief so that we can get through a few. So, anyone want to say anything? There's a mic that will come around to you. Someone? Oh, yes, over here. Thank you. Come. Here, a lady in black here. Yeah.
Thank you for a wonderful conversation that we listened to. I would like to ask David, seeing as you're a scholar of this phenomenon, how would you define love?
How would I define love?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I wouldn't, is the answer to the question, and that's not just me trying to be clever, but it's a mystery. And it has two meanings, I think. It has a hidden meaning and a mundane meaning. We understand the mundane meaning. It's set out in all the great traditions. All the great faith traditions have the teaching of love at the centre and tell us what that means. It varies between the traditions, but say in the Christian tradition, it would be things like honesty, selflessness, a whole list of virtues would be there. And then, of course, there's love as romance, which is a wonderful thing, but it is not the true meaning of love. For me, love is even that bit which is manifest is mysterious. What is it that when we working with colleagues that a loving relationship emerges? What is the quality of that? We typically don't seek to define it, but we experience it. So I would say that it's something we can't define, but we all experience. The hidden meaning of love is completely mysterious and impossible for us to describe because it's hidden. But that doesn't mean it's not there. So I think there's a hidden meaning of love which gives shape to all that is. Everything that is, the universe, the earth and us, are all shaped by this mysterious presence, this mysterious energetic force of love. And we can't possibly describe it. I also think that when we ask a question like that, and I understand why you might ask it, actually love surrounds us every day when we are aware of it. If we don't think that love arises, we never find it. But if we suppose that it's there, we find it again and again and again in the smallest of experiences. Someone at the till says, greets us or is kindly towards us when we arrive there with all our goods and so on. Someone on a bus tells someone that, they've forgotten their bag. And tiny little things like that don't make any sense in economic rationality. But they're there because love is of the essence. So I think that if one supposes that it's there, you find it. Trouble is, we've been taught that it's not really real. And so that it's much more likely that fear is present. So most people know what fear is because they've been told about it. But knowing what love is a life's work, I think. Not really a very good answer, but it's the best I can do.
No, great. Is there another, or would you like to add anything? No? Any other question or comment?
Gentleman,
yes, over here. Yeah.
Yes.
Lovely talk and very deep, very profound. What about mercy? Because I suppose a manifestation of love is having mercy for situations. So when you're facing difficult situations, one of the ways in which to help you tolerate that situation and convert it is to have mercy. So are we saying that yoga of the mind, because mercy also has a limit, it has a threshold, you know, when you're in a situation which is taking you beyond. So are we saying yoga of the mind helps you stretch that threshold?
Yes, definitely. And yes, I would say that one of the manifestations of love is mercy, compassion, and your heart opens up to a greater and greater extent when you experience that yoga of the mind, the connection with the divine. Then yes, it opens it up further and further, so you find yourself being able to have greater compassion, greater mercy. Yeah.
And where does then self-respect, because self-respect also draws a line somewhere, doesn't it? I mean, how does that fit into the unlimited kind of love?
Self-respect is the foundation to be able to experience firstly self-love, but then further divine love, and also then love for all. So self-respect, without that, I'm not able to love myself. I'm not able to come closer to God. And so I think that is the foundation.
Thank you. So it starts with self-love, and then... Thank you.
Mercy is really important. I think it's in the Beatitudes, isn't it? I think blessed are the merciful. But in the Orthodox Christian tradition, there is a hesychast prayer. The hesychast were, in the Orthodox Christian tradition, they were silent practitioners. And you would find them in monasteries or just outside monasteries and so on. But the hesychast prayer, in its shortest form, is Lord have mercy. So we should be in a position of offering mercy to ourselves, but we also turn to the divine presence, whatever we're going to call that, and say, have mercy. You know, here I am, I'm struggling, I'm trying, have mercy. And that touches the other great, hugely important thing, which is humility in all of this, to understand how often we fall short. But we go back and try again, Lord have mercy, Lord have mercy, Lord have mercy. I think that's...
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Here
at the back, there's somebody. Oh, okay. Right at the back. Can you put your hand up again, please? Yeah.
My brother David, two things you share today is very inspiring. One is to shift the consciousness of our rights into that our responsibility simply is to love each other. The other one is when the term single universal consciousness, which we are all a part of. So I would like to hear a bit more about what you touched on very briefly, which is the how can the leaders of the governance, how can the leaders of the social and economic systems who themselves are on the lack of self-love, who are failing humanity on equality or even the environmental degradation, how can they tap into this single universal consciousness and to tackle that issues themselves? Or do we have to wait for time, as you say, or Sister Jayanti mentioned, there's a season?
Could you repeat the question? I can't hear it.
Oh, okay. So the question is that you mentioned that instead of our rights, instead of our rights,
Yes, yes.
the responsibility to
Yes.
love one another.
Yes.
And you also mentioned about tapping into universal consciousness.
Yes.
It brings us together.
Yes.
So how can the leaders of today and those who are responsible for environmental degradation,
Yes.
environmental, responsible for violating rights, and paraphrasing, how can they tap into that universal consciousness? I think have I done it correctly? Yeah? Okay.
I think Daddy Yankee would just say, just do it. But the trouble is, when you see the error and misjudgments of the modern world, let's take climate change as an example. All the promises that are made at the gatherings, you were saying this earlier, sister, that actually they don't do what they say they're going to do. They go on felling the forest. They go on mining for oil. It seems that now the reason that they do that is the language that they believe in leads them to those conclusions. So unless they change their language, by which I mean unless they change the way they are thinking, their values, fundamental shift in values, they will always end up at the same point, because that is the direction in which the dominant language has taken us. The dominant language of selfishness, greed, separation, conflict. That's the dominant language of our time, and has been for a long time. That language leads to the climate destruction that may engulf us. The only way that the people who are governing the world could change that, and of course they could, would be if they changed their language. And that's why I suppose those of us who are exploring love as a practice feel a sense of urgency about it. But you know, this is an organization of over 1 million people organized through virtues of love. It sort of works. And I think when you're trying anything yourself, in any kind of collective, collaborative work, if you try all the time to be the one who wins and have victory over that person and be the only one who speaks, you know what happens? It's a disaster. But if you include, if you listen, if you bring love to that group, it transforms what happens and the actions that are taken. But you have to come at it from a different language, which is why we have to begin this teaching in primary schools. We have to bring through a generation of people who will suppose that harmony, collaboration, are things that are the default. That's what we default to. We have to shift that. There's a task, but what do you think, sister?
Agree with everything, but I'm just thinking that this concept of one world family is so important.
Yes.
And if you think about an image of this whole planet as being one boat, and we're all in the one boat, it isn't that you're in one boat and India or Brazil are in other boats, but all of us are together in one boat. And so our responsibility is a shared responsibility for each other. And then if we have that awareness and understanding, then there could be collaboration and cooperation rather than competition and conflict, which is what we've seen today. And especially in that idea of collaboration, cooperation for climate change, it's one of the issues that has been coming up a lot. If the water is leaking in this part of the boat, I say, I'm fine, that's your side. Well, how long am I going to stay fine? If the water is coming into the boat, it's going to touch my feet and my ankles sooner or later. And so I think this mindset that has divided all of us has to change and come back to the awareness of one family. I think that, yes, start with nursery school, but I think you can't wait till they're going to be grown up and take up positions of leadership. I think you have to do it both ways, starting with the grassroots, but also with the leaders.
Absolutely, I agree with that. And I don't think that the change is going to come from above, from the leaders. It's going to come from below. And, you know, you only have to listen to what the young people are talking about now. And they are not going to be content to allow this damage to continue, which my generation have handed to them in our shame.
Thank you.
There was another question here.
Okay, can we just be the final question? Thank you. If the mic could come, thank you.
This.
The gentleman in yellow here.
Om Shanti. Thank you for everything. I think it's been a nice seminar. I learned a lot. I just want to say that you hear that if you come closer to your own pure being, then that is full of love. And the second thing is, whenever you are closer to your being, there is more love. And if you are going away from your, maybe if a person is stressed or you are moving away from your being without realizing it. My question is, it says that you are closer to your being, the being is full of love. How has this transformation happened? Because the being is eternal or in its absolute stage. How is this? Or is it just nature of the being to be full of love?
In fact, I didn't hear your final bit of the question.
Yeah.
How?
Because we said when we are closer to a being, we are full of love.
Yes.
Yeah. But how this thing has happened
that we've come away from love?
No. Why is the being intrinsically full of love?
Why is it intrinsically full of love? Okay, why is the being intrinsically full of love?
The being?
Yes, why is the being intrinsically full of love? How has this come about?
Or is it because we realized at that time that you are deathless?
I think the natural state of the inner being is love. And when we forget who we are and we get caught up just in the identity of the external form, that's when we move away from love. So coming back to the understanding of who we are and connecting with ourselves, and the love is able to emerge.
Okay.
Yes, I think that's exactly right. We are love. We are love. Just as we share a universal consciousness, that consciousness is the consciousness of love. It's a loving consciousness. So love is deeply within us, inevitably. But sometimes we go the wrong way or we deny it because our culture is telling us to deny it. So we have to return. And this is why the yoga that you talk about is so important. We have to return to the understanding that we are love.
Yeah. Is it safe to say that we are love, but we are unaware of it?
Yes.
Is it safe to say that we are love, but we are unaware of it?
Yes. Yes. Okay. It's a lack of awareness. You're quite right.
Yeah.
It's a lack of awareness.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank
Om
you.
Shanti.
And the yoga that's practiced here is raising your sense of awareness and discovering the love that is within you. Then you're able to be love.
Okay, thank you. Om Shanti. I got more.
One of the things that love said to me in that experience was, be in love. So be in love, but be in love.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you all.
And
Thank you all.
or did you want to add? No. So just finally, I would like to ask both of you to share. Not finished yet. Like both of
You should finish.
yeah, to share just a a reflective moment, both of you, please. Thank you.
This has been a wonderful evening. It makes me aware of my own frailty, but also it makes me aware of how I know, as our friend asked, I know that we are love. And I believe that silence and stillness and simplicity are the ways to enable that love to arise.
Perhaps we can share reflection together and just go into that inner awareness, coming back to the awareness of the inner being and stabilizing my awareness in this eternal identity of the being, the consciousness of light and love. I hold this awareness of who I truly am. And in this space of inner silence, savor that experience of the presence of the divine. And the power of love that comes from the infinite being of love. I absorb this love within myself. But the power of love also radiates out into the world. And the divine love raises me to my own highest state of being, where the soul is filled with love that can heal, love that can forgive, love that can transcend all barriers. The presence of divine love reminds me that we are a family, one family held together in the bond of pure love. We carry this love with ourselves so that it impacts my thoughts, my words, and my actions. Om Shanti.
So, thank you so much to both of you, Sister Jayanti, to David. Thank you for this very profound evening. I just think one thing that stays with, well, many things stay with me, but the idea that everything begins with a breath of love, and how non-violent, how harmonizing, how energizing and beautiful love is. So thank you again for that. think we're all going to float away on a cloud of love from here. And I'd like to also thank Naoko very much for the beautiful music. Thank you so much. And thank you to all of those behind the scenes, technical team, the producers, those who made the sweets you're about to get, and the ushers, so many people. And thanks to all of you for coming, and thanks to all of those watching online. I don't know how many, I'll find out later probably. How many? Over 160 online, so we are easily more than double. So thanks to all of you for being present. And if you'd like to obtain any of David's books, the books that were mentioned, they're available online at Amazon, or you can go to davidcadmanatwork.com. David Cadman, I think it should be davidcadmanatLove.com. But davidcadmanatwork.com, they're all there.
Best to go to Amazon.
Oh, best to go to Amazon. So The Recovery of Love, Love and the... I guess just put David Cadman, you'll get all the books. And some of Sister Jayanti's books and others available at the bookshop and in the reception. And David and Sister Jayanti will also be in the reception area too, if any of you would like to chat a bit further to them. And just a little bit about a follow-up, if any of you would like to follow up here in this house. So there's going to be a half-day retreat, and it's actually a retreat into silence. And that's going to be on the 18th of June. So all welcome. I believe that's a Sunday. That's in-house only. So those online, if you want to come, you have to fly in, okay? And then there'll be another in-house only event, Positive Thinking Workshop. And that will be on the 25th of June, 2 to 5 p.m. And Introduction to Raj Yoga courses, one starting online on the 1st of July and another in-house on the 3rd of July. But if you go to the globalcooperationhouse.org website, you will see everything. And a reminder that the event is available to watch on the Brahma Kumari's UK YouTube very shortly, I believe. Right now. Instantly. Great. It's already, you can go home and watch again. Okay. And I think all that remains then is to invite you. Our tradition is to share a sweet with everyone, a sweet and a blessing card. So I'll ask Sister Jayanti to come to the front to do that.